This is probably the heaviest, maybe darkest video that I'll ever record. I'm going to try not to get emotional during this video because some things I'm going to share in this video, literally only a handful of people on the planet know this about me. And in obedience to the Lord, I am up here telling my testimony, but not only my testimony, my full testimony, the whole truth. And it's terrifying because this is a secret that I swear I would take to my grave, and I'm going to try not to cry. I guess I'm getting emotional because I personally discern that God has shown me that there's people's lives attached to this testimony if I don't get this out. And the other reason I'm emotional is because of, in real time, you are watching me break the back of shame off of my life in this area that the enemy has tried to hold me back in fear of for so long. And some people might think I'm crazy. Why are you up here telling this? Why are you? If you have to ask that question, you don't get it. The purpose of this video is to close out this testimony, this 3-part testimony of Sugar Baby to Jesus, of how I went through a very interesting journey in this lifestyle for 8+ years, and how in the end God redeemed me. He brought me out of it and cleaned me new, sanctified me, continues to sanctify me. So please bear with me. If I do get emotional, please bear with me. If I pause a little bit, give me grace. This is very, very hard for me to do. But the crazy part is I discern that this may be attached to some of the biggest blessings that are going to come in my life. So, not trying to be dramatic, but hi, I'm Letitia Renee Brown, and thank you again for tuning in to my channel to watch yet another testimony. And this is Sugar Baby to Jesus, part 3, the finale. And where we left off in part 2, if you remember, definitely please go and watch part 2. You have to watch part 1 and 2 for this to make sense. Where we left off, I just landed my dream sugar daddy, right? And he agreed to give me $3,000 a month. And after we came back from this, exotic trip, after knowing each other for maybe 2 weeks, and I was flying high. All of my bills were paid at this point, and I made it. And again, I love to put timestamps because this is not where I am currently. I'm a happily married woman with 2 kids. This was many years ago. This is my testimony for those who aren't aware. Thank you, Jesus. So let's dive right into where we are now in this story. And so where we left off, to timestamp it, it was, let's say 2015. I'm like, oh, I got everything I want and need because now I got this new sugar daddy who gave me like my dream goal of an allowance. I'm flying high. And everything is peaches and roses in the beginning. The first couple of months of being in this arrangement, if you will, he's, teaching me and taking me shopping, teaching me how to shop for real, like teaching me about better quality clothing and, took me on a shopping spree. We are traveling maybe once a month to every part of Central and South America you can think of, in the Caribbean. And if you remember from my previous video, my ex sugar daddy got me a job with one of his friends because he wasn't going to pay for everything. So he was like, I'm gonna get you a job instead, because I didn't have a job. And so now with this sugar daddy, that business that guy had kind of fell through, and I didn't quit. It just kind of fell through. So now I'm unemployed, but now I have all the time to finally go back to school full time. And so I re-enroll full time at Georgia State University and here in Atlanta. And this was ultimately one of my main goals. Of course, I didn't want to struggle financially. Of course, I didn't want to be depending on a paycheck month after month. I wanted the freedom to be able to go back to school full time, because I left because I couldn't afford it from before, if you remember my previous videos. And that's what I was now able to do. Not to mention, I was able to move into, at my time, my dream apartment in Atlanta, Midtown. High rise, floor to ceiling windows, hardwood floors, stainless steels, black appliances. But this was my dream apartment. Now I can be in the city, and now it's more accessible to, my sugar daddy. So we were just doing our thing. We were just doing our thing, dating, like legit dating. It just so happened. It was more like along the lines of, I guess, what they would call age gap dating, except there was an allowance. But we would go out in public. We would go on dates. We would go out to eat. He would take me to galas and political events and meet his friends and family members and all these things. Like, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. We were just decades apart. And it was strange for me at first. I had to get used to being with someone that was significantly older than me, because the guys that I was dating before, they were maybe like 10, 15 years older than me, maybe 20. But this guy is, many decades older than me. And at this time, I was about 24. And also, I remember in the early months of dating, I just started to experience what they call the finer things in life. I swapped out my car for a nice little shiny BMW. That was my first luxury car. We were eating in some of the most, expensive high-end restaurants in Atlanta, but it was just normal. It wasn't on a special occasion. We would just go because it was Tuesday. And it was interesting because I was vegan at the time, so I couldn't really enjoy it. Now that I look back at it the way that I probably can now, as pescatarian mainly. So that's interesting to think about these things. And now I'm in school full time, mind you. So now I'm a college girl as well. So I'm looking back at how things panned out. And I started to get greedy very early on. I wanted to see how much I could stretch this $3,000 a month. I wanted to be able to pay all of my bills, save, and live a high-end lifestyle. What's interesting about this arrangement, I was faithful. I say in air quotes because it's an interesting dynamic of a relationship. But I was seeing him exclusively for some time, for a while. Maybe all the way up to close to, I can't remember, maybe all the way up close to like a year. I've always had people that, I would talk to or be friends or whatever, but I wasn't out actively going on dates with anybody else or anything like that. I was focusing on him because I was just like, well, this dude is giving me everything I need. I'm just focused on him. I don't need to, yeah. But again, if you remember from my previous videos, I was not very accustomed to being in a monogamous relationship, nor was I accustomed to being faithful. It was just me and him just rocking out. And I was so busy. We were always out of the country or, going to some event or party or, or I'm in school, so I'm focused on school. I didn't have time to really entertain anybody else. What became interesting was when my greed came up and I saw that what he was giving me wasn't enough anymore, because now I moved to Midtown. My expenses are higher, just food, Maybe not gas because I'm not driving as much, because I used to live in Smyrna. And that's, if anybody's in Atlanta, you know where that is. And so, of course, you'll have to drive to the city a lot to hang out, to see your friends and other potential sugar daddies and go on dates and all of these things. But now that I'm in Midtown, you park your car, you get out and walk, you know? So when me and him would hang out, we would just walk everywhere. That was definitely an expense that went down. But I always had this inherent fear that this man could leave me at any time. So I have to have an emergency savings. I have to have something stacked up. And I always had some sense of a savings. But if you remember my previous video, my ex sugar daddy just cut me off cold turkey. And so I had to kind of exhaust the rest of the savings that I had until boom, here comes this guy that I'm with, the dream sugar daddy is what we'll call him. And so I began this cycle because, just to preface this, me and this guy were together for 5 years. And so I began this cycle where about once a year I would break up with him. And it's really sad to say this because it was a bit of like a manipulation tactic where I would break up with him because I have nothing to lose, and kind of like playing hardball and negotiating in this way of just like, well, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I think we're better as friends, whatever I would say. And he would come around and say, let's talk about this. Is there something else that you need? And then I would ask. And I asked him for a raise in my allowance. And I think it was maybe like 1,000 or so more, because moving to Midtown was a bit more expensive, which was cutting into my potential to save. But also now I'm in school, and yeah, I'm using student loans to pay for my books and everything, but I'm not going to tell them that I need money. I need more money for this, and that. I wasn't a materialistic girl at the time, so I didn't really have all the bags and shoes and all this stuff yet. I just wanted to make sure that I could save while maintaining this lifestyle. I didn't have to pay for much else when we go out on dates and all this stuff. He's paying for everything. All the travels, he's paying for all of it. But my day-to-day things, he would give me the allowance. I would live off of it. I would do what I need to do. I lived by myself, so I still had to take care of myself in that regard. But I was always living in fear. Now, he never held anything over my head, which was refreshing in that lifestyle. But I do remember myself having an inherent fear of this man because of what the guy did to me last time. I'm like, he can cut me off today and I'm gonna be jacked up. And so another method that I started to do was I started to open credit cards. I don't remember what year. I'm kind of skipping around here. I don't remember what year, but at some point I, ended up getting a pretty high-end credit card, and I was racking up credit cards, not spending on them. I was racking up credit card so I could have a large credit card limit, or a large credit card spending limit, if you will. And so I'm calculating in my head, okay, if he leaves me next week, at least I can live on this credit card for this amount of time, or I could live on this credit card for this amount of time. Put those together. Okay, I got about a year. Okay, I'm good here. Da, 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 da. Like, I was calculating in my head how I could survive. And so day to day, on the outside looking in, people might see me driving the BMW, pulling up to class, or, walking around in like nice clothing, eating at high-end restaurants, and always gone and out of town and traveling and all these things. But deep down inside, I was scared and I was surviving, because at any time he can move on to the next hot chick, right? And so here was the other conflict too. I started to get really involved in school. I started to get into pageants. I started to get into, I didn't do a lot of extracurricular like groups and clubs and stuff at this school. I did in my previous college because I had way too much going on. But I did manage to, become Miss Georgia State University 2015. That was interesting. And he funded that whole thing, the dresses, the whole endeavor. And I went to compete in Miss Georgia, which is attached to the Miss America pageant. So that was interesting as well. And I was, again, 24. So as soon as I got in, I aged out. So it wasn't like a pageant career. I just wanted to do it for fun. But also, I think it was like $1,000 scholarship or something like that. In my mind, I'm also thinking, how can I, bring in my own source of income on the side he's not paying for my school. I'm still using student loans or any grants, Pell Grant and all that stuff that I could get because I had a pretty decent GPA. I think the other one was the Hope Scholarship, right? Was that it? Yeah, here in Georgia. Then after Miss Georgia State, obviously I didn't win, but it was fun. It was a really fun adventure. So I kept the pageant thing going, but instead I did a pageant for a fraternity. I forgot the fraternity name, Lord. Must not be important. But anyway, yeah, so I did a pageant for a certain fraternity and I had a blast. I had a blast. The bros, they were so welcoming. They were so dope. They were so chill. And the women that I was doing the pageant with, some of us, we started to become close, become friends. So I started to have college friends, and that started to change the dynamic for me as well. The double life started to become a lot more apparent for me because here I am, 24, going on 25, and I'm hanging out with some people my age, but mostly people like 19, 20, like some people are pretty young too because they're in college. And this is my second rodeo of going to college. This isn't my first time. So I'm wanting to finish my degree. I'm getting invited to college parties. I become, why am I drawing a blank of this fraternity? No disrespect. But I was Miss Black and Gold. Gosh, why am I'm drawing a blank? I don't know. But yeah, I was Miss Black and Gold 2015. So I was simultaneously Miss Georgia State and Miss Black and Gold. And that was just fun to me. It wasn't hard. It was a lot of work. We did the dances and the competition and all this stuff. It was fun. It was fun. Because of that, you start to be known a little bit on campus. Not crazy, but just, a little bit. People know you here and there. And so I wanted to live the college life. So I started to feel like when I would hang out with my college friends, we would just be chopping it up, chilling, maybe smoke a little bit, maybe, you know what I mean? Do a little something here and there, maybe go to a little college party here and there, maybe drink a little bit, like I wasn't like a huge partier, but I went in this year. When I was 24, 25, that year I went in. And then it's like I would leave them and then go back to my other life where I'm hanging out with, my sugar daddy. We're going to this posh restaurant, or we're going to this country, we're traveling, and and it's you have to kind of like be mature. And I started to feel a bit of tension because there's two things happening for me. I would say three things. I'm in school first and foremost, so I'm not playing around with school. Like my grades were superb. I studied very hard. I went to school for I got a bachelor's in studio art. And so, yes, I'm taking a lot of art classes, which was a lot of hard work. I'm taking a lot of art history classes. And, I opted out of a lot of the prerequisites because I already went to college for about a year and a half in Savannah. So I'm in school full time. I have exams. I have papers. I have installation pieces and pottery pieces and paintings to do. I have sculptures to do. I have work to do. And so I'm juggling class. I'm juggling, oh shoot, I still got to hang out with my sugar daddy a couple times a week. And then I'm juggling this college life. I'm starting to make some friends and I can't really let them into my life. I can't really, I'm hesitant to let them come over to my high-rise apartment. I kind of hide and park around the back when we go and hang out and do things together because I don't want them to see my brand new BMW. There was a guy that I started to become interested in, and because I'm very picky in general. You can ask my husband. But there was this one guy that I thought was pretty mature, and he was handsome and, a gentleman and all of these things. And he just really stood out. He was a good guy. He didn't come across as like the sleazy, raunchy, sloppy little college dudes that you come across pretty often. He seemed like he was a pretty stand-up guy. And I remember that tension there of like not knowing what to do with that, because I could tell he was interested in me and I was interested in him, but I got this old dude and he's paying my bills. So I can't, you know what I mean? So it's interesting because it's funny. I even talked to my husband about this, tell him this story because it was interesting. I didn't come across a lot of men my age, especially at that time, that I would be genuinely interested in because they all were so immature to me. But this guy didn't come across as immature. And that was very refreshing and very surprising. And so I remember the tension of all of these things. Schoolwork, sugar baby lifestyle. And also gaining friends in the sugar baby lifestyle. So now we're hanging out, we're going to bars. It's a couple women that I'm getting to know. And so upkeeping that. And then college friends. I'm going to fast forward a bit. And I'm going to fast forward a couple of years because it was kind of like the same stuff. I would have these up and down moments of breaking up with him like once a year and then getting back together once I got what I wanted. And then I would be faithful for a time. And then somebody else would catch my attention. So it's interesting that I mentioned the college guy. But even around that time, I'm still hanging out and traveling periodically with a girlfriend of mine. And every time we hung out, it was somebody in our face. You know what I mean? And not just like anybody. There was like well-known celebrities in my face. And I won't mention them here because that's not important. But at that time, if we go to this club or if we're, in the airport about to get on a flight and we see so and so, and then, I get on the flight and his bodyguard comes to me and says he wants your number. And I'm just like, this is someone that has won, many Grammys and all these women fall out after him and all this stuff. And he wants my number. Like I had a lot of surreal moments where we would just have these run-ins because when I'm hanging out with my girlfriends who are in that lifestyle, we're going to high-end places or we're getting invited to VIP, areas and the clubs and stuff like that when I used to party. And it was something out of a movie. I'm not gonna lie. It was something out of a movie. It was really ratchet though, if I look back at it. I'm just being honest. Like it's nothing to be proud of. It's nothing to be like, oh, I missed that. I don't. It was sticky club floors and smoked out sections and terrible liquor. It's just like, even if it's high end, spirits are spirits. I don't miss that lifestyle at all. I just had to preface that by saying that. But anyway, back to the story. That's what I did for a couple of years. Balanced college life, balanced sugar baby life. My family life was crap. It was like almost non-existent. Um, I felt really bad. And she's probably gonna watch this video. Love you, Nugget. But I felt really bad because I wasn't the closest with my baby sister, who had so many great things going on at that time when she was in high school. I missed so many things. That makes me most emotional because it's just like, what the heck was I out here doing? Chasing the bag and missing those important moments in my life for people who mattered the most. And I don't miss it. I don't miss that lifestyle. So I have some tissue handy because I'm pretty sure I'm going to cry a couple of times doing this video. Okay. I was such a broken woman. Such a broken woman. Okay. And so let's fast forward to about 2017. I am about to graduate Georgia State University, but Letitia is not normal. So what do? I skip graduation and I decide to get my last 2 credits abroad in China. So I'm in China having a blast with my classmates and my teacher. We went to Beijing, Xi'an, Shanghai, and I think that's it. Climbed the Great Wall of China. Saw the tower in Shanghai. Saw some amazing art museums in Xi'an. I want to make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah. So yeah, I missed graduation. But when I came back from China, yay, I graduated. And they were going to send me my degree in the mail. And right after that, we went to Cuba. my sugar daddy and I, because I think around that time Cuba just opened up and we were like, yep, we're going. So we went to Cuba. That was a blast. It was very interesting. Little 40s, old 40s cars driving around everywhere. It was very, very interesting. I've had a lot of travel stories that I can't share here, but take hours. So I remember on our way, I think to Cuba, as they say, I was talking to my sugar daddy and I just felt like it just came up so apparent in my heart. I just graduated college. What I really want to do, what I've always wanted to do is act. And I had a serious conversation with him about it on the flight. And I was saying, if I could do anything right now, is I would get into acting full time. And he was just like, okay. And so that's what I set my sights on. And I think as soon as I said that, I saw like a poster somewhere at school for like a small audition for something, and I got the role. And it was like some small little indie thing, but I was exercising my acting chops. I haven't truly seriously done any acting since high school when I was starring in stage plays and things like that. So now I'm graduated, I'm dedicating my time as a full-time actress, and I'm doing the grind. I'm starting from the bottom of the barrel from the very beginning, and I'm working my way up. I'm doing a lot of free roles, a lot of indie small bit roles, getting into the background acting, all of these things. I was climbing my way to the top in the right way. And I remember kind of calming down on like, the dating and all that stuff on the side, because I was so focused on my acting now. And I really wanted to, I guess, express my gratitude in a way for this guy, just like taking care of everything so I can focus on my dream. And so I did that for a time. And just to fast forward, if I'm looking at it, I hammered away at acting for 3 years straight, full time. And there was so many ups and downs and breakups and getting back together and raising allowances and getting things that I want and all this stuff in between. And it was interesting because probably, let's say year 4, let's say we're in year 4. So if this is year 4, this is 2000. Yeah, let's fast forward to 2018. And so at this point, I'm starting to become a bit known in the indie scene here in Atlanta. I'm starting to do like crime scene reenactment shows like Fatal Attraction and Homicide Hunters and stuff like this, and having fun. I remember I got to a point where after the breakup and makeups and getting back together and, hanging out and dating people on the side and then cutting that off and focusing on him full time for a minute, I negotiated my way all the way up to about 6K. And so I doubled my allowance. And I'm not saying this to boast. I'm not saying this to say, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. No, I'm just showing you the method that I used to manipulate this man to get anything that I needed out of him. At this point, I moved to a higher floor in the apartment building I was staying in, the high-rise apartment. And I was starting to rack up like name brand clothing items and shoes and bags. And I was starting to become that materialistic woman. I was starting to become very vain, even more. Oh gosh, because I forgot to mention that as soon as we met each other, I think maybe within the first couple of months of knowing each other, we flew off to Central America and he paid for me to get my breast done. So I was living the dream, got the plastic surgery thing going, got the handbags and shoes going, got the travels going, got the experiences. And it was just, yeah, a culmination of this whole entire sugar baby lifestyle. And it was interesting because I had like the quintessential sugar baby life goals, if you will, compared to what some other women were doing or what they wanted. And I didn't know that until someone else mentioned it. But I remember having like some sense of a blog, if you will, and reading other women's blogs. Of course, there were some women out there who was doing some super extravagant stuff that I never experienced, right? So there was like levels to this is what I'm saying. And I would say I was probably like in the mid upper level, if you will, but it still wasn't enough. And so one of these friends that I came to know, she was cool, beautiful young lady, very ambitious, very driven, had a great head on her shoulders, very smart. And I think she was also in school as well, just trying to make it. But also, we all have this persona. We all have this mindset that we enjoy what we're doing and we are taking our life in our own hands. We weren't victims. Nobody was forcing us to do these things. We were deciding to do this. And so she divulged to me a little later on that she was actually into escorting and that she was somewhat of a sugar baby, but she was a full-time escort. And I remember that being so interesting, but kind of scary to me. And I was just like, wow, like, so what do you do? And you know what was very interesting to me? It wasn't much of a difference between the sugar baby stuff and the escort stuff. It wasn't much of a difference. There isn't much of a difference. Um, she was explaining to me how she's just basically what she was doing is just more of a professional level. She had, the ads out there and men would contact her on her website and all of these things. And then they would book her for a date, and maybe she'll fly to them, maybe she'll visit them, maybe they'll come to her, whatever it was. And she, every time, not every time, but like towards the end of our friendship, every single time that we would meet, she would tell me about her adventures of going to see this person, how much, he paid her here and there. And it was so interesting because she actually wanted what I had. She wanted a relationship with someone who could pay for her bills and all of these things. She didn't want clients. But I remember she kept like, I wouldn't say she was pressuring me because nobody can pressure me into doing anything, right? I can make my own decisions. So it wasn't her fault. But she kept bringing it up. She just kept saying to me, she was like, oh my God, like if you were to get into this, you would do so well. Like you're so pretty and da da da, like just gassing me up. And it reminds me a bit, if you watched episode 1, it kind of reminds me a bit of the young lady who essentially told me about this whole entire sugar baby lifestyle, how she was just kind of telling me what the guy was doing and she kind of planted that seed and then it grew over time. That's what happened here. She would just tell me more and more things and she would make it seem so easy and simple. And it's not much different than what you're doing now, except you can see multiple people and you don't have to be stuck to this one person. You'll make probably 3 times as much and all of these things. And I was very greedy. I was getting more and more greedy, if you remember. Even to the point where I remember I knew this girl who had like this connection with like a billionaire. And her sugar daddy was friends with a billionaire that they wanted me to meet. And, went on a date with him and he had a private jet and all of these things. And I remember thinking like, okay, bet if I can get this one, I can drop this guy and I can just be focused on this guy. And now I'll have the jet set lifestyle. Now I'll be on the private jets. Now he'll be paying me. Shoot, I can probably get 10 to 15 to 20K a month. I could be all this stuff that I had in my brain of like, just keep climbing. Because now I was done with school. Check. That was my initial goal. But the greed was saying, okay, what can I get more of? What can I get more of? But I always had a goal in mind. And I'm going to come back to the escort girl. But I had a goal in mind. Now I'm done with school. My goal is let me continue to fund my lifestyle, not drop the ball at all, so that I can continue to pursue acting full time and maybe even use the things that I'm learning and skill sets that I'm acquiring to help me make it in Hollywood. Get to work on my networking skills and work on cultivating the relationships I need to cultivate and whatever else I was thinking was going to help me climb to the top. I didn't want to sleep to the top. That's one thing I didn't want to do because I did not want to be known as that. But I definitely wanted to work my way to the top. But I knew that networking and how you look and all of these things are very, very important. And so back to the young lady I was talking about, she planted that seed in my head. And I was very nervous. I just started to weigh the pros and the cons. Again, in this time of my life, let's say it's 2018. At this time in my life, I was very far from God, not much of a moral compass, except for, don't kill and whatever. So how would I make decisions? Well, I still had dabbled a little bit in the new age stuff. I was a yoga instructor at the time. I think I was currently going through like yoga teacher training. So I was very serious about my spirituality. And so I would, of course, do meditation, yoga, and things like that. But I wasn't like super deep into understanding what crystals and chakras are, or spirit guides, and none of that yet. I ended up doing the research and creating a pros and cons list as an effort for me to decide if I was going to become an escort. I weighed the pros, I weighed the cons. There were a lot of cons, but the pros looked very good. This pros and cons list showed me everything I needed to know. On top of that, which is kind of creepy now that I look back at it, there are literal blogs and books and podcasts about escorting. And these women are condoning it. They are teaching you how to do it. They are rooting you on and empowering you the whole way to sell your body for money. Yeah. So I was reading these books. I was listening to these podcasts. I was trying to get the game. And I was hitting up old girl and asking her questions too, because I wanted to consider all the avenues. And I'm like, isn't this illegal? Like, we're not in Vegas. Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, I got into it. I made the website. I put up the ads. I took the pictures. I created a fake name. And I became a high-end escort. And it's crazy for me to say that to the whole world right now. But I know my Father in heaven is rejoicing of the fact that I can confess with my mouth the filth that he brought me out of and break the back of shame off of my life. Because this was not something that I was ever going to share with anyone. Yeah, I was an actress, yoga instructor, and an escort. And the crazy thing is, honestly, it wasn't that much different than what I was already doing. It was just a lot more structured and transactional. And Sugar Daddy didn't know about it. Obviously, no friends and family knew about it. The only people who knew was maybe a friend of mine who was in that lifestyle, this young lady who was actually an escort who put me on game, and my clients. That was it. And I became very successful at it pretty quickly. She was right. The enemy had all the open doors for me. Not really going to spend a lot of time going into detail about the things that I did. Prostitution is prostitution. The interesting thing about it is, in order to uphold that lifestyle, the sugar baby lifestyle, the escorting lifestyle, I had to become a total different person. I became so cold. But outwardly, you see this bubbly, nice little young lady. Oh, hi. I dressed differently so I could have a different persona of who I was when I was even with my sugar daddy versus who this new woman was that I created. It's like I was using my acting skills on clients. And the interesting thing was, I always felt a sense of impending doom every time I would leave my house to go see someone. I felt like at any moment something could happen to me. Someone could kill me. I could catch something. The possibilities are endless. But all the resources that I was using, the books and the podcasts and following other people's journeys and all of these things in this lifestyle in particular, oh, they're cheering you on. They're rooting you on. Yeah, I was a walking Barbie doll. Sometimes they would tell me to dress certain ways, wear my hair certain ways. It's just so interesting because I'm having to really think hard about that part of my life because I compartmentalized it so deeply in my brain that I really don't remember much. It's really a blur. It's really a blur because I was so ashamed, and having to crack my heart wide open right now and recollect those moments and memories with you guys right now in real time is very hard. So excuse me if I'm kind of talking in circles. And so I did that, still climbing in the acting space. I got to a point where I started to have regular clients. I started to be a bit known more, among the circles of people that wanted to see me. I even traveled. I think they call it like a tour or something. I traveled to, I think one time I traveled to New York and did like a tour and saw some clients there. Traveled to Chicago, did a tour unsuccessfully, saw no one there. I think I just met up with another escort and we just like hung out and had drinks and went dancing. That was interesting. And that's the thing. It's like the women that I did come across and started to get to know in this lifestyle, these were beautiful, brilliant, highly educated women. And you will look at them and be like, why are you doing this? But you couldn't tell them anything else otherwise. Same for me. This is empowerment. No slut shaming here. Can you say that on YouTube? Anyway, but it breaks my heart. I was right there with them, but it breaks my heart. This is someone's daughter. This is God's daughter. And she's out here selling her body for money. I don't care if it's high end, low end. You can glamorize it all you want. Say the girlfriend experience, whatever you want to call it. It's prostitution. That's what I was doing. And so I did this for probably, I don't know how many months. Because it took a while for me to rev up and actually have people to reach out. I think like the first month that I put myself out there, only one person reached out. The second month, he had some people trickling in. And the third and fourth, maybe 6 months. I think I did it for 6 months. This is what I believe. God's hand was on me the whole entire time. But his hand was definitely on me at this very moment where, for the first time, like my escort friend was telling me, what she did on the regular, doing these trips to where she would fly somewhere, hang out with a guy for a couple days, come back with $20K. I was having my first booking of being flown out. And I think the guy was going to pay me like $3,500 or something like that for like a weekend hangout thing. And he wanted to hang out. He wanted to go on a date. He wanted to, it was in another state. And he sent me the money and everything. I put it on my calendar. We confirmed everything. It was a go. I made sure I didn't have any yoga classes to teach, no auditions or anything coming up. And I was going to come up with an excuse, to lie to my sugar daddy and tell him maybe I'm going on a family trip or something. I don't know what I was going to do. Child, hot mess. And this trip was booked in advance. So I think it was like the following month or something like that or whatever. Then I booked the Opal, the TV show that I'm on. And I'm not going to go into detail here because if you watch my other videos, you know about my journey of booking this major role, being a series regular, and all these things. And that role allowed me to shut everything down. I quit my yoga instructor job. I shut down and removed and erased my existence from the escort world. And I broke up with my sugar daddy because this role was the goal that I had in mind. It was a symbolism of my freedom, my independence. And now financially, your allowance is not going to do it for me. I'm good. See you later. Bye. This is so interesting talking about this. And I know this video is going to be very long, but it's worth it. This is very hard for me to share. So thank you for hanging out with me thus far. If you're really enjoying this content, if this is intriguing to you at all, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you hit the like button and definitely turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss another episode to come out of any testimonies, any teachings, any prophetic words, anything that comes on this channel for Letitia Renee Brown Ministries. So back to the story. I cut everything off because now I am a professional working actress. I don't need a sugar daddy. I don't need clients. I don't need a yoga class. I don't need anything. I am now making my own money. And so I want to spend the rest of this video kind of briefly taking you through the struggles that I had after I left that lifestyle. Not only did I walk away with a lot of shame that I compartmentalized, right? I also realized that I didn't know how to date. And I could go on and on about all the dates and all of the men and all the things in this story, but this video would be like hours long. And so that's why I had to fast forward a bit. I remember after newly breaking up with my sugar daddy, I attempted to, I wouldn't say seriously date, I had some flings. I remember feeling so distraught and discombobulated because these flings were with guys that were like my age. And I didn't even know how to act. Like, I felt like I just needed to get it out of my system. Like, I've been dating and talking to old guys for years. I just wanted some hot candy. I just wanted somebody who looked good, maybe got some abs, maybe, is not bald. Maybe somebody who's just young, hot, fit, attractive, and let's just have fun. And so that's what I did. It was like maybe one or two guys, not at the same time, but like at different times, in this couple of months span that I was entertaining. And I just wanted to see like, maybe something can happen here. I think one guy, he was still, coming up on the come up financially. And I remember that in my mind automatically disqualified him of anything serious because of what I just came out of. I'm like, I'm used to men spending money on me. And you're just saying you want to just hang out and whatever. No, dog, we can kick it. We can be friends. We might can play around a little bit, but I'm not going to take you serious. And that was the mindset that I had just in general. If anybody was trying to date me at that time, it's like you had to come with it. This is beyond hypergamy. Okay. This is gold digger. This is bona fide gold digger at this point. I was a gold digger. Yeah. So anybody who stepped to me, you had to have the goods. You had to have them, or else, because I have my own money now, especially, I don't have time for this. So when I say I grew so cold, I became that man eater, if you will, I did. And I was just out here moving cold. It was interesting to see how I just didn't know how to date again. I just didn't know how to function. I was like, what is normal dating? God, he's really cute, but he's broke, ew. Like, that was my mindset. If you watched my video in my testimony series, Testimony, My Life, His Glory, where I was talking about how God separated me from my ex, then you'll understand how I went on a year-long journey with God. And so let's fast forward a bit. 2019, I cut everything off. I cut everybody off. I cut the sugar daddy off, and I started, boom, my dream role. Fast forward to about 2021. In 2020, I rededicated my life to Christ, September 2020. 2021, separated from my ex that spring. Now I'm on this year-long journey with God. And it's just me and him. And it's interesting because I left everything behind, but I never really processed it. And I never really experienced an alternative, if you will. I had little moments with my ex, my regular ex, not my sugar daddy. Again, if you haven't watched my previous videos, you have to go back to watch it to know what I'm even talking about. But my regular, not sugar daddy, ex, who was still older than me, who still had a promise of finances because we were both in the acting space. I even struggled with that financially, trying to understand how to flow with him, because there were times, especially during the pandemic, where I had to pay for things. I had to fly myself out to wherever he was. I had to fit the bill for certain things. I struggled with that. I struggled with that so much, but I was putting my gold digger ways behind me. And I'm like, no, I love this man. We're moving towards marriage and we want to do life together. So I have to go back into that mindset of we're growing and we're working things out together. It was hard. It was hard. So I paint that picture just to say, in general, learning how to date after coming out of escorting and sugar babying, I didn't know how to. I had to relearn what it meant to truly date, to really see the value of a human being and a person for who they are, not just what they can give me financially. And so it's 2021. I'm on this year-long journey with God. And I say a year-long journey just for context, because a year later, I met my husband. So that's why it was a year-long journey. It took a year for me to just be celibate and focused on God. And then boom, here comes my husband. And that's going to be for a future video. So I remember during this time, there were a couple tests that came up. At this point, I'm walking with God. I'm on fire for Jesus. I'm not entertaining no one. I'm not, being intimate with anyone. I'm not even dating. Like, men are just like, it's no like hate there or anything like that, but I just don't see men. It's so interesting. And I truly believe that I was like hidden, because typically what I was used to, especially in the way I used to carry myself before, anywhere I would go, someone's trying to pay for something for me, or someone's trying to hit on me or ask me out, blah, blah, or whatever. But in this year-long journey of consecration with the Lord, I was really hidden. Nobody was in my face. Nobody was like checking for me. I wasn't checking for nobody either. I also think it's like an energetic thing too. My energy wasn't out there putting out, I'm available, come hither. It was just like, I'm not available. I even had on like a ring that I wore for Jesus. So it was just like, I'm his. Like, I'm not. So my disposition, my energy, whatever you want to call it, it gave off unavailable. It gave off probably married woman. So, yeah. This is when maybe a couple seasons in, the Oval was just like at its peak, doing very well ratings wise. And for some reason, our show is like crazy popular in African countries, which I'm like, that is so dope. And so I was in Buckhead and I went to this restaurant that I used to frequent pretty often, in that lifestyle from before, but I went by myself. And I just wanted a really nice glass of white wine and, a really good fish dish or whatever I got. And I sat at the bar by myself. And I remember it was this African guy that came in the restaurant, and he came and got me from the bar. First of all, he was just like, aren't you the woman who plays on the Oval? Aren't you Sharon? Aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, oh, no. You have to come out here with us. He was with his friends. He was like, you have to come out here with us. I'll buy you whatever you want, whatever you need. Like dinner. And I thought about it, and I'm just like, all right, Lord, what is this? And maybe my ways weren't fully changed at the time. But I was just like, what the heck? Why not? I think I was having a really bad day that day too. I think I was having a really bad day. So I just put on something cute, got dressed up, and took myself on a date. And this guy came and got me from the bar. And so we're sitting like on the outside seating on the patio. And I'm hanging out with him and his friends, and we just kicking it. It's like he has 2 other guys with him. It's just and we briefly talk about the show. I think the other 2 guys were married, and they were just like showing me pictures of their wife and talking about their kids. And I'm talking to this guy, and he had kids, like older kids. I think he was divorced or something. And he's just like, wanting to exchange numbers and all this stuff. And I still have like the radar. Like I still knew how to spot when someone actually was wealthy or not or whatever because of that lifestyle. I wasn't looking for it. But the guy pulls out a whole freaking black card, puts it on the table. He's buying me, first of all, all of the rosé that I want and, food. And you want anything else? Okay, you have to try this. You have to try this dessert. Da, 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 da. And we're just like joking, laughing. I feel like I'm just like hanging out with the bros or something. It was so weird. And this was pretty early on in that year journey. So I still had some kinks to be, let out of me because I think God was still working on my heart in the way that I dressed. He was working on my heart and the people that I entertained. So this was very early on in the journey. I do want to say that I don't think I was fully deeply into my consecration, or my butt wouldn't have been out there in the first place. Okay. So I'm hanging out with these guys, a whole bunch of African dudes. And because they had really thick accents. That's what I'm saying. African dudes had very thick accents. It was apparent. I even asked them where they were from. And we exchange information, Instagrams. And I can tell he's on that type of time. I'm not doing anything. I'm not, using the skill sets I used to have. I'm not trying to force my way into any situation. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just chilling. I'm enjoying this glass of wine. I keep asking me if I want more food. I'm like, bro, I'm full. Like I can't eat anything else. Like we're just hanging out. We're having fun. And in my mind, I'm like, this is a cool, dope experience. I'm going to go home. I'm probably just going to hang out and chill with my cat after this. I don't look forward to seeing this guy in the future. So that's what I did. As soon as I got home, I blocked him and I just kind of pretended it didn't happen, meaning I didn't want to continue conversations. He wanted to go hang out and do this, XYZ, all this stuff the next day. And I can tell he wanted to date. I can tell he wanted to pursue something. I can tell he wanted to take care of me. I can tell he wanted to go down that road. There was nothing there for me. It was just like, I was just like, oh, good. Because also there wasn't an air of desperation because I was making my own money. So that was another thing too. But even as God was beginning to change my heart, even if I wasn't on the Oval, even if I wasn't on Black Lightning, if I wasn't making money from acting, I would have found some other avenues to just make a living like I used to. I'll go get 3 jobs if I need to. I'm the kind of person that if I need to go find a job, I can find a couple of them. I don't know what that is. I'm very good at interviewing. I'm really good with resume building. I don't know where that skill set came from, but I've always been that kind of person. I can always go and get a job. It's just never been an issue for me. And so I always had that backup plan, but the sugar baby escort stuff, that was never an option for me anymore. And so that was one of the first tests. The second test was, let's fast forward maybe to, it's still 2021, but it's August. My birthday's in August and it's my 30th birthday. So I treat myself to a solo date in Chicago. And I see some family there. I think my mom came with me like the first half of the trip and then she left. And the rest of the time I was just there by myself. And I would just go to different restaurants and just have really great meals. And I'll go back to my hotel, spend my time with the Lord. I'll be in my word, studying, not focused on dating or anything. I was also still waiting for my husband, and that's going to be another video. Okay. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that because I don't want to spoil that video. But I'm in Chicago. It's my 30th birthday. And I'm sitting at the bar at this super cute restaurant off of the Magnificent Mile. It's kind of tucked away. I walk there from my hotel. Next to me plops down this older gentleman who was, I think he was Peruvian or something. And which was interesting because I've been to Peru before, with my sugar daddy. And so we were talking about that, but he just plopped down and he just started to make conversation. But I think the lady next to me was as well. You sit at the bar It's more of a social environment. That's what people do. So I didn't make anything of it. But next thing you know, similar to the African dudes, this guy is sitting here. We're like, he's buying me more drinks. We have to try this. And this is my favorite dish. I come to this restaurant all the time. Okay, I'm going to order this. We're going to share this. I want you to da 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 da. And I think he even paid for my food. And I was just like, wow, thank you. But the whole time we were there, we were just chopping it up, having great conversation. I didn't want anything from him. I'm pretty sure he wanted something from me, but I didn't have nothing to offer him. But we were having just conversation because, again, I've been around older men so often in that lifestyle I was in. This man had to be easily in his mid 50s. It didn't register in my brain. It was just another man sitting there. We're having a dope conversation. I can relate to almost anybody on any topic. That's just something that it's like a skill set of mine. I don't know. And so he pays for the bill and we walk out. I'm about to walk back to my hotel. This man goes, you see that building? You see that unit up there? Because the restaurant was at the bottom of a high-rise building. And evidently he had a unit in the penthouse of this building. And I'm looking up, I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, that's my place. I stay there when I come here for work. Because I guess he traveled a lot for work. So evidently he was a wealthy guy. I didn't know. He just dressed so unassuming. Most wealthy guys do. They don't walk around flashy. And so I was like, oh, cool. Okay. And he was like, you want to come up? I was like, no, thank you. But you have a nice night. He was like, are you sure? He was like, okay, can we at least exchange numbers? And what's the show that you're on? I'm going to watch it. And I was just like, oh gosh. I was like, yeah, sure. We can exchange numbers. Exchange numbers with the guy. Got back to my hotel. And I think we texted back and forth like a little bit that night because I think he was trying to set up something because he wanted to see me the next day, honey. He wanted to hang out. He wanted to go to brunch. He was like, I want to take you out while you're here. We can go here. We can go shopping. Da 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 da. All these things. Blocked. I'm not playing that. I'm on a solo birthday trip here in Chicago by myself. It's nobody but me and Jesus. I'm not sitting here falling for that. But that was the perfect situation and scenario for the old me. I don't know if it was a test from the Lord or it was temptation from the enemy. But it wasn't really much temptation, so it could have been a test. And I passed it, I think, because it was nothing there for me. There was no struggle and, oh, I should go up to his room. Oh, maybe he could. No. Do you know how often I've been shopping since I've been out here in Chicago, buying myself so many different clothes and all this stuff, just hanging out by myself, enjoying myself. So I didn't need anything from a man at that moment to spoil me or take me out. Or I was taking myself out. And I was really enjoying my own company. So I want to end this 3-part series with a brief reflection. What would I say to Tisha back then? I would say, baby girl, you are so loved. You are so loved. God loves you so much and he sees you. He has a purpose and a plan for you. And you don't have to sell yourself for cheap pennies. You don't have to devalue and demoralize yourself for random strangers and random men. Because you are worth it. You're worth so much more than this. Jesus died on the cross for you because you are that important. And he has a purpose for you. You have gifts hidden deep inside of you. You have talents that he wants to use right now. Everything that you want to do in life and all of your desires can be shaped and molded into what he desires for your life. But that is going to give you fulfillment. That is going to give you true peace. That is going to give you real joy. You are finally going to have an opportunity to fill that void in your heart that you've always had that was not filled by random strangers giving you money for your body. God loves you so much that he can fill that void like that. Not by some random guy's wallet. Your family misses you. Your friends miss spending time with you. And if you could stop for a moment and stop striving, stop trying to take care of yourself in such a toxic, unhealthy way, and slow down, seek my face, I will show you the way. That's what I feel like God would have said to me in that moment. Back then. And that's what I would have loved to hear. I had no one around me to tell me these things. I wasn't sharing anything with anybody, so how could they know to speak life into me? The people that I did tell, they were cheering me on. And it's all stemmed from my childhood when I was molested, when that spirit of lust entered into my life. When I didn't have my biological father around, and not by his choice. When the immediate trust for men was broken at 4, 5, 6 years old. And I thank God for creating a new creature in Christ. I thank God for blessing me with a man in my life that in real time I have begun and continue to learn how to allow someone to love me. And where I am now, I am so far from that lifestyle. Happily married, 2 kids, living for God, for real, in full-time ministry, as you can see. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. That was such a dark, dark time in my life. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Where I am now. Living for God, is it easy? No. But is it fulfilling? Yes. Oh, yeah. Is that void filled? To the brim. To the brim. I'm no longer out here seeking empty, just seeking something to fill that God-shaped hole that I had. So I know this video is going to be pretty long, but if you stuck around to the end, I just want to let you know that God has put it on my heart to turn this into a book. So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for my first book. And in that book, I can go into more detail. In that book, I'm not trying to hurry past certain key details for the sake of time. And yeah, you'll get even more of the story. I didn't leave any key major things out in this video. I'm not hiding anything because I think I did my job, Lord, right? Like I got up here and told the full truth. But there are definitely things that I probably skipped over that I didn't think were significant, or probably details that I didn't put in this video because it would take up time, that I would definitely share in the book when it comes out. So be on the lookout for that. And again, subscribe so you can know what's going on this channel. Like this video. And comment down below how you feel about this content. If this is something that touched you, if you relate to this at all, if there is anything in your life that you feel like God has delivered you from, you can put that down below in the comments and let's start a conversation about it, because this was truly a journey of deliverance for me. I mean, even from God, slowly pulling me out of it by giving me another opportunity. I believe he gave me another opportunity, which was, this dream role that I thought I wanted. Oh my goodness. Now it pulled me away from this dangerous lifestyle that I was in, because it was dangerous. But God kept me. He spared me. So many things could have happened to me. I put myself in harm's way time and time and time after time and time again, being in that lifestyle. I just want to paint the severity of it. It's nothing to play with. It is nothing to play with. And so, this was hard. This was hard. Again, I had to be obedient, but it's out. It's out here. I don't know what the response is going to be of this video. Frankly, I don't care because I did my job. And if God is pleased with me, then that's all I care about. So until the next time, I will see you in my next video. Peace.